Grace Bennett's eyes snap open, her heart pounding like a drum in the dim light of a strange hotel room. She's lying on a rumpled bed, her silk dress torn at the shoulder, barely clinging to her trembling frame. Panic surges through her as she realizes she's not alone. A man, a stranger, sleeps beside her, his face unfamiliar. Grace scrambles to her feet, her breath catching, her mind racing. What happened last night? Her head throbs, memories blurred, as if someone slipped something into her drink. She stumbles to the mirror, seeing her disheveled hair, her smeared makeup, and the ripped fabric exposing her collarbone. Fear grips her. This isn't her life. She's Grace Bennett, heir to Bennett Enterprises, not some scandal waiting to erupt. She grabs her purse, her hands shaking, and flees the hotel, the cold New York City air biting her skin. The streets are alive with honking taxis and bustling crowds, but Grace feels invisible, clutching her torn dress to cover herself. She needs to get home, to safety, to her family's Manhattan penthouse where answers must wait. But as she reaches the towering building, her world shatters again. Her belongings, her designer bags, her books, her life, are strewn across the wet sidewalk, rain pooling around them. Grace freezes, raindrops mixing with her tears, her coat catching on a jagged edge and tearing further. She's a mess, drenched, her appearance screaming shame to anyone who passes. Henry Bennett, her father, stands at the entrance, his face a mask of fury. "You disgraced us, Grace," he bellows, his voice cutting through the storm. "Sleeping around for deals? You're no daughter of mine." Grace's knees buckle, her voice lost in the rain. "I didn't do anything," she whispers, but Henry turns away. Rachel, her half-sister, steps forward, a cruel smile curling her lips. "Looks like my room now," she says, holding Grace's favorite necklace like a trophy. Eleanor, Rachel's mother and Grace's stepmother, sneers. "Get out, you filthy girl. Don't dirty our name further." Grace's heart breaks, the family she loved casting her out like trash, her torn coat flapping in the wind, her dignity stripped bare. She sinks to the curb, rain soaking her through, her body shivering as strangers stare. Once she was Grace Bennett, poised to lead Bennett Enterprises, a real estate empire built by her late mother. Now she's nothing, betrayed by those she trusted most, her reputation hanging by a thread. Was that hotel room a mistake, or something far darker? A plot to ruin her? Grace clutches her bag, the only thing left, and wonders how it all went wrong. She thinks back to yesterday, to her life of boardrooms and gala dinners, now replaced by this nightmare. Her mother's memory, her strength, feels distant, drowned by the rain. But there's another piece to this puzzle, the man from the hotel. James Caldwell, he called himself, when she glimpsed his wallet in her panic. He seemed as confused as she was, stirring as she fled, but who is he? A bystander caught in her chaos? Or someone with answers? Grace doesn't know, but his face lingers in her mind, a flicker of mystery in this storm. Could he hold the key to her salvation, or is he another trap waiting to spring? She shivers, pulling her tattered coat tighter, the rain relentless, her future uncertain. New York City looms around her, its glittering skyline a cruel contrast to her despair. Grace was born to shine, to carry her mother's legacy, but now she's cast out, her clothes ragged, her spirit bruised. The scandal, whatever it was, has already begun to whisper through the city's elite circles, threatening to bury her. Yet somewhere, deep inside, a spark refuses to die. Grace wipes her tears, her jaw tightening. She won't let this break her. Not Henry, not Rachel, not Eleanor. She'll find the truth, reclaim her name, and rise again. But how? Alone, penniless, and marked by shame? Where does she start? The answer lies ahead, in the shadows of this unforgiving city where fate has more in store. James Caldwell, the stranger, may cross her path again, and with him, a chance to rewrite her story. From rags to riches, drenched in rain, can Grace find love and reclaim her legacy? Her journey begins now, a tale of betrayal, redemption, and a heart that refuses to surrender. Rain pours over Grace Bennett, pooling around her on the Manhattan sidewalk, her torn coat heavy with water. She's alone, her family's penthouse looming above, its warm lights mocking her. Henry's words echo in her mind. "You disgraced us, Grace," slicing deeper than the cold. Rachel's smirk, Eleanor's sneer, the necklace dangling in her half-sister's hand, they burn like fresh wounds. Grace clutches her small bag, the last remnant of her old life, and forces herself to stand. Her mother's memory, the woman who built Bennett Enterprises, whispers strength, but it's faint against the storm. She stumbles forward, her wet shoes squeaking. No plan, no home, just a need to escape the pitying stares of passers-by. Days before, Grace was untouchable. The COO of Bennett Enterprises, her mother's real estate empire. She remembers boardrooms, her confident pitches securing million-dollar deals, her father's rare nods of approval. But that Grace is gone, replaced by this shivering figure, her torn dress hidden under a ragged coat, her reputation unraveling. She thinks of the hotel room, waking beside James Caldwell, a stranger whose presence haunts her. Was it a mistake, or did someone plan her ruin? Her head aches, the fog of that night refusing to lift, but she knows one thing: she didn't choose this shame. Grace finds a diner, its neon sign flickering in the gloom. She slips inside, the smell of coffee and grease grounding her. She counts her coins, enough for a cup, and sits in a corner, her wet hair dripping onto the table. The waitress glances at her torn coat but says nothing, leaving Grace to her thoughts. She replays Henry's betrayal, how quickly he believed the worst. Rachel's ambition was no secret, always eyeing Grace's position. But Eleanor's venom surprised her. They wanted her gone, and they won. Grace's fingers tighten around her mug, anger sparking. She won't let them erase her. Across the city, in the glass tower of Bennett Enterprises, Rachel lounges in Grace's old office, her feet on the desk. She twirls Grace's necklace, a sapphire heirloom from their mother, and laughs. "It's mine now," she says to Eleanor, who sips champagne. Henry paces nearby, his face grim. "You're sure about this, Eleanor?" he asks. "Grace brought this on herself," Eleanor replies, her voice sharp. "Sleeping around for contracts? She's unfit to lead." Rachel nods. "We're saving the company, Dad." Henry hesitates, guilt flickering, but he sighs. "You're COO now, Rachel. Don't let me down." Rachel's smile widens, her plan falling into place. Eleanor leans in, her eyes cold. "We need to seal this, Rachel. No loose ends." Rachel pulls out her phone, scrolling to a video, blurry but damning. Grace in a hotel room, her dress slipping, a man's shadow nearby. It's fake, edited to ruin her, but convincing enough for social media. Rachel smirks. "I've got bloggers ready to post it. It'll spread like wildfire." Eleanor nods. "Good. Let the world see her for what she is." Henry turns away, uncomfortable, but doesn't stop them. The video's release is set, a ticking bomb to bury Grace's name. Back at the diner, Grace's phone buzzes, a message from Henry. "Meet Vincent Doyle tomorrow, or you're out for good." Grace's stomach twists. Vincent, a client with a sleazy reputation, has been circling Bennett Enterprises, his deals tied to strings Grace never wanted to pull. She types a reply, "I didn't do anything wrong," but deletes it. Henry won't listen. She stares out the window, rain blurring the city, and feels the weight of her new reality. No job, no family, just whispers of a scandal she can't explain. A shadow falls over her table. Grace looks up to see James Caldwell, his brown eyes steady, a dry jacket in his hand. "You look like you need this," he says, his voice gentle. Grace stiffens, recognizing him from the hotel, her pulse quickening. "Who are you?" she asks, her tone sharp. James sits across from her, uninvited but calm. "Just a guy who woke up as confused as you did," he says. "I'm James, a stock trader. Got caught in whatever mess that was." Grace studies him, his worn sweater and easy smile disarming, but she's not ready to trust. He offers her the jacket and Grace hesitates, her torn coat barely keeping her warm. "Why help me?" she asks. James shrugs. "Because I know what it's like to lose everything." His words hit hard and Grace softens, taking the jacket. It smells faintly of cedar, comforting in a way she didn't expect. James suggests a place to stay, his apartment, just until she's on her feet. Grace wants to refuse, her pride stinging, but the rain outside and her empty pockets decide for her. She nods, wary but grateful. James's apartment is small, a far cry from the penthouse Grace knew, with mismatched furniture and stacks of finance books. He offers her a couch, a blanket, and hot tea, moving with quiet care. Grace sits, her wet hair drying, and feels a flicker of safety, the first since that awful night. James talks lightly about trading stocks, bad coffee, anything to ease her tension. He jokes, "You know, we could get married, solve all this." Grace laughs, the sound surprising her, but shakes her head. "Not a chance," she says, though the idea lingers, absurd yet tempting. As Grace settles in, Rachel's plan unfolds. The video hits social media, a grainy clip labeled "Bennett heiress caught in scandal." It shows Grace or someone like her in a compromising pose, the man's face obscured. Comments explode, calling her shameless, a sellout. Bloggers pick it up, their headlines vicious. Real estate princess falls to shame. Bennett Enterprises stock dips, investors murmuring. Rachel watches the chaos from her office, her phone buzzing with updates. She texts Eleanor, "It's working." Eleanor replies, "Keep pushing." They need Grace broken. Grace wakes to her phone buzzing, notifications flooding in. She opens one, sees the video, and feels her heart stop. "That's not me," she whispers, but the world doesn't care. Her name trends for all the wrong reasons, each post a knife to her pride. She thinks of Vincent Doyle, the meeting Henry demanded. Is this why? To clean up a mess she didn't make? Grace's hands shake, anger replacing fear. She won't let Rachel win, not like this. But how can she fight when she's got nothing left? James knocks on the doorframe, holding 2 mugs. "Saw the news," he says, his voice steady. "You okay?" Grace shakes her head, tears brimming. "They're lying, James. I don't know how to stop it." He sits beside her, close but not crowding. "You start by not giving up," he says. Grace meets his eyes, seeing something solid, a lifeline in her storm. She nods, resolve hardening. She'll face Vincent, clear her name, whatever it takes. Across town, Vincent Doyle smirks at his penthouse desk, reading the blogs. He's a man of wealth and shadows, his deals with Bennett Enterprises always laced with ulterior motives. Henry's message arrives, "Grace will meet you. Fix this or we're done." Vincent chuckles, his eyes gleaming. An engagement, he muses. That's the price. He wants Grace, not for love, but for control, a trophy to flaunt. He leans back, confident, unaware Grace's spirit isn't so easily tamed. Grace stands, smoothing her borrowed sweater, her torn coat discarded. She looks at James, who's watching her with quiet faith. "I have to do this," she says, meaning Vincent, the company, all of it. James nods. "I'll be here." His words anchor her, a promise she clings to as she steps back into the city. The rain has stopped, but the storm inside her rages on, pushing her toward a fight she's only beginning to understand. Rachel, in her office, refreshes her phone, watching the video's views climb. She smiles, thinking Grace is finished. Eleanor joins her, pouring wine. "To new beginnings," she toasts. Rachel clinks her glass, oblivious to the fire they've ignited in Grace, a fire that won't be doused. Henry sits alone, staring at a photo of Grace's mother, guilt gnawing, but he pushes it down, choosing Rachel's path. Grace walks through Manhattan, her steps firm, her eyes bright with purpose. She's down but not out, her mother's strength stirring within. Vincent's meeting looms, a chance to confront the lies, but also a trap. James's face flashes in her mind, his jacket's warmth still lingering. She doesn't know him, not really, but his belief in her is enough for now. The city pulses around her, alive with possibility, and Grace vows to rise, to reclaim what's hers, no matter the cost. Grace Bennett steps through Manhattan's crowded streets, her borrowed sweater a thin shield against the morning chill. The city hums with life, taxis honking, pedestrians rushing, but Grace feels apart, her mind fixed on Vincent Doyle's meeting. Yesterday's rain is gone, but the storm inside her lingers, fueled by Rachel's lies and Henry's betrayal. She clutches her bag, the weight of her mother's memory urging her forward. She's no longer the shivering girl cast out in a torn coat, though the scandal's shadow clings tight. James Caldwell's words echo, "I'll be here," a quiet promise that steadies her. Grace doesn't trust him fully, not yet, but his belief in her is a spark in the dark, and she holds it close. She reaches Bennett Enterprises, its glass tower gleaming under the sun, a monument to her mother's legacy now twisted by Rachel's ambition. Grace slips into the lobby, her head low, avoiding familiar faces. She's no COO anymore, just a low-level assistant, a role Rachel forced her into to humiliate her. Her desk is a cramped cubicle, papers stacked high, a far cry from her old corner office. Grace boots up her computer, ignoring the whispers of colleagues, their eyes flicking to her like she's a curiosity. The video scandal, that fake clip of her in a hotel room, has spread, its lies painting her as a disgrace. She grits her teeth, opening files, determined to prove her worth. Rachel strides past, her heels clicking, a smug glance thrown Grace's way. "Forget how to file, sis?" she taunts, tossing a stack of reports onto Grace's desk. Grace bites back a retort, her fingers tightening around a pen. She won't give Rachel this satisfaction. Instead, she dives into work, organizing data, spotting errors Rachel missed in a major contract. Grace emails her findings to a supervisor, her heart pounding, hoping someone will notice her skill, not her shame. But Rachel intercepts the email, deleting it before it's seen, her laughter echoing as she leaves. Grace slumps, frustration burning, but she refuses to quit. Late that afternoon, Grace meets Uncle Frank, a gray-haired family friend, at a quiet coffee shop. His warm eyes soften when he sees her, tired but unbroken. "You're your mother's daughter," he says, sliding a photo across the table. Grace's mother, smiling, vibrant, beside a man Grace doesn't know. Frank leans in, voice low. "She built Bennett Enterprises from nothing. But there's more. She was tied to the Prescott dynasty, Grace. You're their blood, maybe their heir." Grace's breath catches, the Prescott name a legend in finance, wealth beyond imagining. "Why didn't she tell me?" she asks. Frank sighs. "To protect you, I think. Henry never liked it." Grace stares at the photo, a new piece of her past clicking into place, giving her purpose. She returns to work, her resolve sharpened. She digs into old company records, finding traces of her mother's vision, projects Rachel's mismanaging. Grace drafts a proposal to save a failing deal, working late, her cubicle lit by a single lamp. She sends it directly to a board member, bypassing Rachel, a small act of defiance. The next morning, Rachel storms in, furious. "You think you're clever?" she snaps, shredding the proposal. "Stay in your place, or I'll make it worse." Grace meets her glare, unafraid. "I'm not done, Rachel," she says, her voice steady. Rachel scoffs, but a flicker of unease crosses her face. That evening, Grace prepares for Vincent Doyle's meeting, her stomach nodding. She meets James at his apartment, needing his calm before the storm. He's cooking pasta, his sleeves rolled up, the smell filling the small space. "You sure about this guy?" he asks, stirring sauce. Grace nods. "I have to face him, clear my name." James sets down the spoon, his eyes serious. "Be careful, Grace. Men like that don't play fair." She sees concern, maybe something deeper, and her heart skips. They eat together, the meal simple but warm, laughter breaking through her tension. James tells a story about a bad trade, his humor easing her fears, and for a moment, she forgets the world outside. The meeting is at a sleek restaurant, Vincent waiting at a private table, his smile oily. Grace sits, her posture rigid, ready for a fight. Vincent leans forward, his voice low. "The company's bleeding, Grace. Marry me and I'll save it. A deal, no strings, just business." Grace's blood runs cold, his words a trap dressed as salvation. "I'd rather let it burn," she says, standing. Vincent's smile fades, his tone hardening. "You'll regret this. The video's only the start." Grace walks out, heart racing. knowing she's made an enemy. Outside, James waits, leaning against a street lamp. He saw her exit, read her face. "You okay?" he asks. She nods, grateful, and he walks her home, their silence comfortable. Back at Bennett Enterprises, Rachel's sabotage escalates. She assigns Grace impossible tasks, deadlines no one could meet, then blames her when they fail. Colleagues snicker, calling her washed up, the scandal's weight crushing her. Grace fights back, staying late, fixing Rachel's messes, her mother's legacy, her anchor. One night, exhausted, she finds a note slipped under her files. "Meet me, Frank." She finds him at a park bench, moonlight casting shadows. He hands her a letter, her mother's handwriting. "It's true, Grace," he says. "William Prescott, your grandfather. He's been looking for you." Grace reads, her mother's words confirming her bloodline, a tie to power Rachel can't touch. Grace and James grow closer, their bond a refuge. They walk Central Park, leaves crunching underfoot, talking about dreams, fears, anything but the scandal. James buys her coffee, his fingers brushing hers, a spark igniting. He gives her a ring one evening, a pink stone glinting, claiming it's fake, just for luck. Grace laughs, slipping it on, its weight grounding her. "It's beautiful," she says, her eyes meeting his, warmth spreading. They sit on his couch, watching old movies, her head on his shoulder, the world fading away. Grace feels something new, trust, maybe love, but doubts linger. Why does he care so much? One night, James gets a call. Stepping outside, his voice low, Grace overhears a name, Prescott, and frowns. Is he hiding something? She pushes it down, not ready to question him. They decide to marry, a quick courthouse ceremony to block Vincent's pressure, a practical move that feels like more. Grace wears the ring, her vows simple but real, James's gaze steady. "I've got you," he says, and she believes him, her heart opening despite the risks. The marriage shifts something, tying them closer, a promise against the chaos. Rachel, meanwhile, doubles down. She pays influencers to repost the video. New headline screaming, "Bennett-era sinks company." The stock plummets, board members panicking. Rachel meets Eleanor in a penthouse, gloating. "She's done, Mom," she says, sipping wine. Eleanor nods, but warns, "Don't get cocky. Grace is stubborn." Rachel laughs, "Let her try." She plants a false report blaming Grace for a lost contract and spreads it to the staff. Grace finds it on her desk, her name smeared, and feels the walls closing in. She confronts Rachel, "You won't win." But Rachel just smiles, "You're nothing now." Henry calls Grace, his voice cold. "Apologize to Vincent or you're cut off forever." Grace pleads, "Dad, it's a lie." Rachel's behind it, but he hangs up. She stares at her phone, tears falling, the family she loved slipping away. James finds her, sitting on his steps, broken but not beaten. He kneels, wiping her tears. "You're enough, Grace," he says, his voice firm. She looks at him, seeing truth, and nods. They walk inside, hand in hand, the ring catching the light, a symbol of her fight. Grace digs deeper, finding proof of Rachel's tampering, emails linking her to the fake video. She saves them, building a case, her mother's strength guiding her. Vincent sends a new threat, "Meet me or the company falls." Grace agrees, knowing it's a risk, but she's ready. James insists on coming, his presence a shield. They stand together, facing the city. Grace no longer alone. Rachel's empire of lies is cracking, and Grace feels it. Her heart steady, her love for James growing, a fire that won't fade. Grace Bennett stands beside James Caldwell, the Manhattan skyline stretching before them, its lights sharp against the evening sky. Her hand rests in his, the pink ring glinting, a quiet vow between them. She feels stronger, no longer the girl cast out in a torn coat, though Rachel's lies still sting. Vincent Doyle's threat hangs heavy, "Meet me, or the company falls." But Grace is ready, her mother's legacy burning bright inside her. James squeezes her hand, his eyes steady. "You don't have to do this alone," he says. Grace nods, grateful, her heart tethered to him despite the doubts about his past. They turn from the city, stepping into the fight, together. Grace spends the next morning at Bennett Enterprises, her cubicle a battlefield. She sifts through emails, piecing together proof of Rachel's deception, the fake video that smeared her name. She finds a trail, payments to bloggers, coded messages between Rachel and Eleanor. Grace saves every file, her pulse quickening, knowing this could end them. But Rachel's sharp eyes miss nothing. She corners Grace in the break room, her voice low. "Stop digging, sis, or I'll bury you deeper." Grace meets her glare, unafraid. "Truth's coming, Rachel," she says, walking away, her spine straight. Rachel fumes, her control slipping. Uncle Frank calls Grace to a diner, his face grave. He slides a folder across the table, documents stamped with the Prescott dynasty's seal. "Your mother was William Prescott's daughter," he says. "You're his granddaughter Grace, heir to more than Bennett Enterprises." Grace's breath catches, the weight of her heritage sinking in. "William's been searching for you," Frank adds, "since your mother died." Grace clutches the folder, her mother's handwriting on a letter inside. "I wanted you safe, my girl." Tears prick her eyes, but they're not sad. They're fuel. She thanks Frank, promising to meet William, her future clearer than ever. Grace arrives at the Prescott estate, a mansion of stone and glass overlooking Central Park. William Prescott greets her, his white hair framing kind eyes, so like her mother's. "You're home, Grace," he says, his voice thick, pulling her into a hug. She feels it, a belonging she'd lost, but the moment sours when Isabel, William's adopted daughter, steps in. Her smile is tight, her words clipped. "Quite the story, Grace," she says, "but we'll see." Grace senses her jealousy, Isabel's place as heir now threatened. William waves it off, leading Grace to a study, photos of her mother lining the walls, a life she never knew. Isabel wastes no time. She hires a shady lab, paying for a fake DNA test to prove Grace isn't Prescott blood. The results arrive at a family dinner, Isabel presenting them with a smirk. "No match," she says, handing William the report. Grace's heart sinks, William's face falling, but she notices Isabel's nervous glance. Something's off, she thinks, her instinct sharp. William looks at Grace, torn. "I wanted it to be true." Grace stands. "I am your granddaughter, I know it." She leaves, hurt but determined, vowing to uncover Isabel's lie. James meets Grace outside, his car waiting. He sees her pain, pulling her close. "We'll fix this," he says, his voice firm. Grace leans into him, needing his strength, but questions linger. Why does he care so much? She pushes it aside, focusing on Vincent's meeting set for tonight. They drive to a high-rise club, Vincent's domain, his power palpable. He sits at a velvet booth, his smile predatory. "Last chance, Grace," he says. "Marry me, save the company." Grace laughs, cold. "I'd rather fight," she says, sliding a file across, proof of his shady deals. Vincent's face darkens. "You'll pay for this." Before he can act, James steps in, his presence commanding. "Leave her alone, Doyle," he says, his tone carrying weight Grace doesn't understand. Vincent hesitates, then backs off, muttering threats. Grace looks at James, confused. "How did you do that?" she asks. He shrugs. "Just know some people," but his eyes dodge hers. They leave, Grace's mind spinning, sensing James is more than a traitor. Back at his apartment, she confronts him. "Who are you, really?" James sighs. "I'm James Caldwell, CEO of Caldwell Industries. I hid it to keep you safe, Grace, from my world's dangers." Grace reels, betrayal cutting deep. "You lied," she says, her voice breaking. James reaches for her. "I was drugged that night too, same as you. I stayed because I care." Grace pulls away, needing space, her trust shaken. She walks the city, rain starting again, echoing her first night of shame. But James's words linger, his actions, the ring, the marriage, all real. She stops, realizing she loves him. Lies or not, she returns, finding him waiting, worry etched on his face. "I'm sorry," he says, and she nods, falling into his arms, their bond stronger for the truth. Meanwhile, Rachel pushes her advantage. She leaks more lies, claiming Grace tanked a major deal, the board now questioning her. Eleanor meets her at a rooftop bar, pleased. She's finished, Rachel, Eleanor says, but keep Vincent happy. Rachel nods, texting him, Grace is yours, just wait. Vincent, humiliated by Grace's rejection, plans revenge, his ego bruised. He spreads rumors linking Grace to new scandals, the stocks sliding further. Henry reads the news, guilt gnawing, but Eleanor dismisses it. She's no daughter of yours, she says, and Henry stays silent, his loyalty fractured. Grace, back at James's side, digs into Isabel's DNA test. James calls a contact, a lab expert, who confirms the results were faked. The lab a front. They confront Isabel at the Prescott estate, William present. Grace lays out the evidence, bank transfers, emails, undeniable. Isabel stammers, I just wanted my place, but William's face hardens. Your family, Isabel, but this ends now, he says, turning to Grace. You're my blood, my air. Grace exhales, relief washing over her, William's hug grounding her in a way she never knew she needed. With her heritage secure, Grace turns to Bennett Enterprises. She compiles her proof against Rachel, the video's origins, the payments, everything. At a board meeting, Rachel preens, expecting praise, but Grace walks in, files in hand. She presents the evidence, emails projected on the screen. Rachel's voice caught on tape bragging about the scam. Gasps ripple through the room, board members shifting. Rachel pales. You can't prove it. But Grace smiles. I already have. Eleanor tries to interrupt, but the board silences her, their trust in Rachel gone. Vincent, watching from afar, sees his plans unravel. Grace's files include his role, shady deals tied to the video, and his empire starts to crack. He calls Rachel, furious, you promised me, Grace, but Rachel has no answer, her own world collapsing. The board votes, stripping Rachel of her title, reinstating Grace as COO. Eleanor begs, we're family, but Grace shakes her head. You chose this. She looks at Henry, waiting for him to speak, but he only stares, shame in his eyes. Grace walks out, head high, the company hers again, her mother's dream alive. Henry follows, his voice weak. I was wrong, Grace, forgive me. Grace pauses, pain and love warring inside. You broke my heart, Dad, she says, but I'll run this company, for Mom. She offers him a small role, a gesture, not absolution, and he nods, accepting the distance. Grace steps into her office, the view vast, her ring catching the light. James waits outside, his smile proud. You did it, he says, and she pulls him close, their love a quiet victory against the chaos. Rachel and Eleanor pack their desks, whispers following them, their power gone. Vincent's name fades from headlines, his deals exposed, his threats empty. Grace sits at her desk, files open, ready to rebuild. She thinks of her mother, of William, of James, her new family stronger than the one she lost. The city hums below, alive with chances, and Grace knows she's not just surviving, she's thriving. Her heart full, her future hers to shape. Grace Bennett stands in her office at Bennett Enterprises, the Manhattan skyline sprawling beyond the glass, a canvas of light and ambition. Her desk is orderly, files stacked, a photo of her mother smiling beside her. The pink ring on her finger catches the glow, a quiet reminder of James Caldwell's love, a love that carried her through betrayal and shame. She's no longer the girl cast out in a torn coat, rain-soaked and broken. She's COO again, her mother's legacy reborn under her hands, but the victory feels new, fragile, like a dawn after endless night. Grace touches the photo, whispering, I did it, Mom, her heart full. The boardroom hums with activity, executives nodding as Grace outlines her vision, projects her mother dreamed of, community housing, green buildings, a company that gives back. Her voice is steady, her eyes bright, every word a reclaiming of her place. Colleagues who once whispered about scandals now listen, respect replacing doubt. Grace feels her mother's strength, her grandfather William Prescott's pride, and James's faith, all woven into her. She glances at her phone. A message from James. Dinner tonight? Her lips curve, warmth spreading, their bond a constant in her rebuilt world. Across town, the Prescott estate buzzes with plans. William, his health restored, insists on hosting a grand event, a celebration of Grace's return. He shows her a ballroom, chandeliers sparkling, tables set for hundreds. "This is for you, my girl," he says, his hand on her shoulder. Grace smiles, overwhelmed, seeing her mother in his eyes. Isabel lingers nearby, quieter now, her schemes exposed. William keeps her close, family still, but Grace is his heir, her place secure. She hugs him, grateful for roots she never knew she had, a family that chose her. Grace meets James at a riverside restaurant, the Hudson reflecting city lights. He's in a suit, his trader disguise gone, every inch the CEO of Caldwell Industries. "You look happy," he says, pulling out her chair. Grace laughs. "I am, thanks to you." They talk over wine, his hand brushing hers, their ease a language of its own. James recounts a deal gone wrong, his humor sparking hers, and Grace feels it, love, not just a spark but a flame, steady and true. She tells him about William's party, inviting him, wanting him there when her new life begins. The night of the event arrives, the Prescott ballroom alive with music and chatter. Grace wears a silver gown, her ring shining, her confidence radiant. William introduces her, "My granddaughter, heir to our legacy," and the crowd applauds, her name no longer tied to shame. James stands beside her, his presence grounding, their hands linked. Guests whisper, "Who's he?" Grace smiles, not caring, her heart his. They dance, slow and close, the world fading, just them and the music, a promise of forever. Later, James pulls her to a balcony, stars above, city below. He kneels, his eyes locked on hers, no ring this time, just truth. "I love you, Grace," he says. "Marry me again, for real." Grace's breath catches, joy flooding her. "Yes," she whispers, kissing him, their love sealing a journey from chaos to peace. William watches from the doorway, nodding, his blessing clear. Grace feels her mother's spirit, her grandfather's hope, all wrapped in James's arms, her future bright. Back at Bennett Enterprises, Grace dives into work, the company thriving. She launches a project, a tower named for her mother, its groundbreaking set for spring. Investors pour in, stocks soaring, Rachel's damage undone. Grace thinks of her half-sister, now working a small job, Eleanor beside her, their empire of lies crumbled. She pities them but feels no guilt, their choices their own. Henry visits, his face lined, offering a quiet apology. "I failed you," he says. Grace nods, her voice firm. "You did, but I'm building something better." She offers him a consultant role, a gesture for her mother's sake, not his, and he accepts, stepping back, his shadow gone. Grace and James plan their wedding, a summer ceremony at the Prescott estate, simple but theirs. William insists on walking her down the aisle, his pride a gift. Grace sketches ideas, flowers, vows, her ring a constant on her hand. She visits her mother's grave, laying roses, whispering thanks for the strength that carried her. James joins her, his hand warm, their silence sacred. They leave, hand in hand, ready for what's next, a life built on truth. The city moves around them, New York's pulse a backdrop to their love. Grace thinks of that first night, rain and ruin, her torn coat a distant memory. She was lost, shamed, but found her way, through James's kindness, William's embrace, her own fire. Bennett Enterprises stands tall, a beacon of her mother's dream, now hers to carry. Grace looks at James, his smile her home, and knows she's not just healed, she's whole. Her legacy is love, trust, a company that lifts others, a story of rising from ashes to light. As Grace walks through Manhattan, her step like she feels the future unfolding, endless and hers. James catches her eye, pulling her close, their laughter mingling with the city's hum. She's Grace Bennett, daughter, granddaughter, leader, lover, unbreakable. Her heart beats strong, her mother's voice clear, guiding her forward, always.